Hello, and welcome to CIF 45 Streams Filmmaker Conversations. I'm Mallory Martin. I'm the Artistic Director for the Cleveland International Film Festival. We want to give special thanks to PNC for sponsoring our Filmmaker Conversations. On today's special Q&A session, we'll be joined by guests from the incredibly moving documentary, Apart. I'm honored to introduce Academy-nominated director and producer Jennifer Redfern. And
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jennifer. And four of the main subjects from the film, four remarkable women and mothers: Lydia Loth, Amanda Freed, Tamika Daniel, and Malika Kidd, who also happens to be a program director at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. Thank you so much to each of you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so let's get started. Jennifer, I'd like to start with you. You're an Academy-nominated documentarian and a former resident of Cleveland. But what led you to this story? Was female incarceration always an issue that was important to you? Or, more importantly, how did you find these four women in particular?
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to Mallory, to the entire team at the Cleveland International Film Festival, our community partners, Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry, where a large part of the film takes place, our other community partners, Towards Employment, Recovery Resources, to all of you, the audience, for coming to the screening, and of course to these remarkable and courageous women who shared their stories with us in the film. And I want to say thank you to the Cleveland Foundation, because they were one of our first supporters, and it allowed us to get the film off the ground. My partner, Tim Metzger, and I came across the story in 2016. We had learned that there had been this massive increase of women going into the system because of drugs or drug-related charges, 800% over the past 40 years. And at the same time, we also learned about the reentry program at Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. And we weren't in Cleveland at the time. We were actually living in New York, and we came out for a research trip, and we brought our camera with us. And that's where we met everyone. We actually pre-interviewed over 24 women and talked to them about, at the time, everyone was still incarcerated, but they were part of the program and part of this process of transitioning home from prison. And it was really the courage, the openness, and the honesty that we saw in Amanda and Lydia and Malika and Tamika that wanted us to tell their stories and feature them in the film. And at that time, it was right around the holidays. And as I said, this was a research trip. And so the LMM, the program, had put on an event for the women and their families. And so they were reuniting with their families. I think Amanda hadn't seen Tyler in maybe 6 months. So we witnessed Amanda seeing Tyler for the first time in a long time. Lydia was reuniting with her family. I think it had been at least a couple of months since she had seen her family. And Tamika was reuniting with her family and actually invited us to sit at the table and film this really intimate, privileged moment between Tamika and her daughter, which I think was a very difficult moment for everyone. But it was at that moment that we realized the heart of the film is really in this focus on what incarceration does to mothers and what that separation does to mothers and their families and their children.
Yeah, and that was one of my follow-up questions was going to be, did you know at the beginning that you were going to focus on motherhood and how that's affected for incarcerated women in particular, or did that come out? So I think you're talking about the moment around Christmas when Tamika, you and you were telling Bailey, I think for the first time, that you were in jail and not in college, which was a really beautiful moment. So I think that's interesting that that's sort of what led you down that path. So thank you for sharing that. So ladies, to all of you, I want to say congrats. for working your butts off to be reunited with your children. It's a lot of work, and it was just incredible to watch all of you do that. I'd like to really just start off because I'm most curious, and I think a lot of our audience will be, to see how each of you are doing these days, and what you're doing and how your families are. So Amanda, I'm going to start with you.
So lots has happened. Lots have happened. I'm not really sure. But yeah, life's crazy. I have a 10-month-old now. Coming down once a month to come see my now 14-year-old here in Columbus. Got multiple promotions at my job, bought a house. I mean, just kind of living what I call the normal taxpayer lifestyle. And I love it. I love it.
It's so great. Lydia, how about you?
So far, so good. No longer with Tim Hortons. I'm actually work for one of the United Auto Workers. I work for Jeep now.
Nice.
And I also actually work with Amanda. So I have 2 jobs currently. And the kids are doing really well. Ashton and I are, as I stated in the film, like, we were always super close until I came home. So him and I are back to super close again. It's like I never left. And Derek is actually doing really well right now. So
great. Great. Is he in? Do you mind if I ask if he's in remission or how things are going?
So his last scan showed nothing active in his body. So right now the treatments are working. You have to have scans for like 1.5 to 2 years straight before they can say that, you're NED, what they call NED, no evidence of disease, or in remission. Unfortunately, though, with melanoma, it never goes away. It always comes back. So, but he could go multiple years with nothing. And so far, he has nothing. So treatments are working. We're just going to hope it continues.
That's so great. All right. And Tamika, how about you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really good. I graduated from CDL school and bought me a truck, started a trucking company called Bailey's Logistics. And oh yeah, Amanda.
Yeah. That's so great. I didn't know it was called Bailey's Logistics.
Logistics LLC. So I'm just trying to get that off the ground, and had the trucks running and still trying to learn that industry. And I'm just, full-time mom. I'm done with school finally, so that's good. But we're doing great. My daughter and I have a beautiful relationship. It's gotten so much better, and it's just, everything is good. I have no complaints,
That's so wonderful to hear. Do you still have dreams of opening a restaurant, or has your dream sort of shifted?
No, they haven't. It's just so ironic because I went in February to go purchase a truck, and I had got approved for this loan, and it was the guy that I was going through. He's like, what do you really want to do? What are you passionate about? Because this trucking stuff is kind of hard, being out there in the cold, it's hard work for a lady. So I'm like, well, I'm really passionate about cooking and a restaurant. And he's like, I just bought a restaurant. And I always wanted a restaurant with a liquor license. And he's like, well, I just bought one with one. So I'm in the process of trying to work that out and see if I could, because that's what I really want to do. And it's in the location where I want to be at. And instead of using this money to buy a truck, I would much rather try to invest it into the restaurant. So that's what I'm dealing with right now. Nothing's in stone, but I'm hoping with prayer that's what'll happen for me.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear. And Malika, how about you?
So at the time of the filming, I was the program manager of Just Chopping for Change. Now I graduated with my bachelor's in nonprofit at Cleveland State University, and now I'm the program director. My son is stationed in the U.S. Navy in Virginia Beach. So going to travel and see him, and he's married now. So me and him and his wife get along now. And my husband just started a business in landscaping, so helping him get the business together. And now I'm in school graduate school for my MBA. So I don't think I'm going to ever finish school.
Well, this is just incredible news all around. I think, it's the happy ever after that I think all of you deserve so much. And I just am so thrilled to hear all of that. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, were all of you released in 2019 or Lydia, were you out earlier? I think
yeah, I was out earlier.
Okay.
God, I want to say 2015.
Oh, okay. So it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, so I was kind of wondering for those of you who got out a little bit later, if you can talk a bit about how 2020 and 2021 has been like for each of you. Were any of you going sort of from one lockdown to another lockdown, or was it sort of just you were so happy to be spending time with your family? If anyone wants to talk a bit about how the pandemic has affected your lives, whether good or bad, I guess. And I don't know if Amanda, do you want to start again?
Yeah, I mean, I got out in 2018, so I was out a considerable length of time before the pandemic hit. But right when it hit, I was pregnant, and my doctor called me off work. She's like, no, if you can work from home, work from home. She's like, if you have to go in, she's like, I would just rather you not work. And I'm like, how do you just not work? I mean, you can't not work, I knew it was like a serious thing, but it was just, you have to work. That's how people live. So I went to work from home. My company kind of accommodated me that way. And I was just in this bubble, right? I was pregnant. I didn't go out in public. I didn't do anything. So when I finally had the baby in 2020, I finally started taking her out, and I wasn't even in the practice of like wearing a mask. I forgot my mask every time I went somewhere. People were telling me I shouldn't have my baby out in the world, and if I was a good mother, I wouldn't take my baby out. I mean, it was just like the tone of the entire just nation was crazy for me. Like it just,
Right.
I mean, my life was crazy before I went into prison, and I feel like the pandemic was like crazier. I have lived through like stuff you see in movies of people walking around with masks and, like constantly sanitizing their hands and, not having family gatherings. It's all of our holidays. My daughter's first holidays were canceled due to COVID, like none of the family wanted to get together. We weren't able to do anything. So while my life when I got out of prison wasn't super, involved with the pandemic, my life when it hit and being pregnant was really, really, really affected.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Lydia, I'm guessing in some ways for you and your family as well, especially with Derek being immunocompromised, maybe? Has that been an issue for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry. It was 2017 when I went home. Time flies by and I just lose track. So just there's been a lot going on in the last few years. So just
I was thinking, I don't think we even started the film until.
Yeah, I was sitting there and I was like, did I just say that? I'm like, I don't think that's right. Yeah, I apologize. So sorry. Like I said, every day is like the same anymore. Anyway, yeah, like we really didn't go or do anything because he was immunocompromised, and so we weren't willing to risk us getting it with him having melanoma and it being stage 4. So I did work for a little bit, and then my doctor was like, no, you need to stay home. It's not worth the risk. We need to protect Eric. So yeah, it's definitely been crazy.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're kind of seeing the horizon at this point, and a lot more stuff can be going back to normal soon. Malika, how about for you with the reentry program? Have the women been able to leave prison as much to come engage, or has that been a roadblock for you?
So they haven't been able to leave since March of last year. However, we were able to get some funding to purchase tablets, the educational tablets. So they're continuing with the education, just not the cooking part yet. We're hoping for them to be back within the next few months or so, hopefully. So that's what we were working on with that. And then we got accredited for associate's degrees. So we got our first graduate from the program with an associate's degree in January. So she was able to finish out all her courses online. Well, not online, but through the tablet system that the prison has set up.
Gotcha.
but our department has been working since COVID started because we still have to feed the area homeless shelters. And with COVID coming and they were trying to separate them to keep the socially distance, we've been scatter sites everywhere. So we've fed a lot of people over the course of this COVID pandemic.
Good. Okay, that's great. And Tamika, how about you? Has Bailey been having to do at home learning, or has she been able to go to school?
Yeah, she's been doing everything at home. She just went back Monday. So as of now, she's going like Monday and Tuesday. So half of them will go Monday and Tuesday. Then they deep clean the school on Wednesday, and then the other half go Thursday and Friday. But she's been doing great. I mean, she's doing so good in school that the teachers are sending emails saying just stop, because, you know, when they first put the system in place, they had overwhelmed them and gave them so much work. So we were up and we were doing it, and I'm helping her. And it was to the point where I started reading it and started doing some of the assignments for her because it was just so much, you know. And then one day we submitted an email at like 12:30 in the morning. And the teacher was like, no, y'all doing too much. Like, no, you know, this is so. But now this year it's more structured. She's doing great, high honor roll like every semester. And she's doing good. And as far as coming home during the pandemic, I just felt blessed that I wasn't on the other side. You know, like I couldn't imagine being still incarcerated. You know, I'm not supposed to be out until 2020, till June of this year. So I felt good that I was even, you know, I had the corona a couple times, and actually 2 days before, the day before I was supposed to take my state exam, I found out I had it. So I couldn't take my exam for like a month because I kept having to get negative tests. So but I just kept pushing on and just kept saying it could just be worse. You know, I couldn't imagine being that Northeast. I don't even know how they were living or surviving there. So, you know, I'm just fortunate through the pandemic.
Are many of you still in touch with any of the women who are still in prison?
Well, I still have contact with the prison system, period, and they can have visits or anything. So yeah, our executive chef, actually was bringing over snacks and stuff for the whole compound, not just for the program, it's the ones that were in the program. So we've been trying to keep them encouraged and uplifted, even though they can't come out or they can't have visits. And I think that
So they can't have any family visits? They haven't had any family visits during this time?
When the numbers went low, they tried to do it, but then it went back up and nope, no visits.
It's heartbreaking to hear. Okay, well, so Jennifer, you mentioned this statistic already, but you opened the film with the statistic that the number of women in U.S. prisons has increased 800% over the last 40 years, in many parts due to drug laws, and that Ohio has one of the largest female prison populations in the country, and that 80% of those women are mothers. In doing research for the film, can you expand a little bit on what you found were some of the reasons for these numbers, likely systemic reasons, as I would imagine, especially as it pertains to Ohio?
Sure. Yeah. So there are. So that number started with the war on drugs. So a lot of that is because of the war on drugs. The 800% is because of drugs and drug-related charges, and the 80%, that's the figure of women that are involved in the system, in all parts of the system. So there are a lot of reasons why women end up, for example, having longer sentences. So in some cases, women are less likely to take a plea. So that's one reason why there's been this. That's one reason why.
Sorry, you're saying women are less likely than men to take a plea?
That was one of the things that I read in, I can't remember which report it was, but that was one of the reasons that they indicated, was that women are often when they're involved in drugs or selling drugs, it's often lower level roles, and so they're because of that, they're less, and because of concern for themselves, for their family members. This is what one of the reports said, and I can't remember, like I said, which report it is, but so they said women are less likely to take a plea or to have information that would guarantee them a plea. So that's one of the reasons. But again, a big part of it is because of drugs and drug-related charges.
Right.
And then I think we covered this briefly in the film, but and Tamika, I'm not sure if you want to talk about this, but in Tamika's case, she was facing 32 years. And Malika, I'm not sure if you want to talk about this, but in Malika's case, she was a passenger in a car where there were drugs, and she were you facing more than
50.
15?
50, 55.
55. Yeah.
Yeah, 50.
And you were sentenced to 14, correct?
Mm-hmm. And I couldn't take a plea deal either. They wanted me to tell where my co-defendant, which was my son's father, got it from, and I didn't know. So how would I get a plea if I didn't know where he got it from? Yeah, so.
Tamika, do you want to talk about your plea deal?
Yeah, I mean, I had felt like I had literally been going back and forth to court for 5 years fighting this case. And it was just like, finally, that was the only option. When I knew that I couldn't, that was the best that I could get, then I accepted the plea. And I originally thought like, oh, they wouldn't give me 32 years in jail, like who, until I got to prison and met other women there who had 30 and 40 years just on drug cases, 20-year drug cases. And I'm just like, wow. So yeah, they would have gave it to me had I not taken that plea.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So thinking about such things as the opioid pandemic or epidemic, poverty, structural racism, all of these issues are prevalent throughout parts of Ohio. I think it becomes very clear through this film that when it comes, especially to all of your cases in particular, the punishments do not fit the crimes. And I think very much so too, because these crimes are not of free will. I think free will is gone when you're thinking about how to take care of your kids when you're sicker than hell, Lydia, like you were.
Yep.
I think free will is gone when you've grown up in an environment that is ingrained in drug use. Amanda and Tamika, how you both grew up. And so I think, clearly the film sends a very strong message about how our current judicial system prioritizes punitive punishment over rehabilitation. And that is credit to you, Jennifer, for making such a strong message in the film. And I think nobody can deny that after watching this film. But it also highlights Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries reentry program, Chopping for Change. Malika, can you talk a little bit more about this program? I know we kind of got an update of how it's gone over the last year, but can you talk more? And then I might want to hear from all of you women who were a part of the program, just, how that turned into a daily program, that women were able to leave prison to attend it, and how it helped each of you specifically. So Malika, if you want to start.
Okay, so LMM partnered with the Cuyahoga Reentry Office as well as ODRC, and they came up with this pilot program in 2016, where there were 5 women coming out. That they come out from the prison on East 30th Street every day to learn culinary arts. We also have a program called Therapeutic Program with licensed social workers who also help them navigate through trauma, because most women either had trauma before prison or during prison. And they help them with their family life skills and parenting skills and drug and alcohol abuse if there was some. So that's the first part of the program. And then they go into the culinary program. They're learning everything from chopping to braising to the mother sauces. And then they go into the hospitality part of the program, which is a front of the house, learning front of the house skills and computer and office skills. And then 2 years after that, we were accredited for an associate's degree. So now they can get an associate's degree while they're still incarcerated. We also partner with the Millennial Group, restaurant hospitality group here in Cleveland, where the women 3 months into their out date were able to go to the Marble Room, a high-end restaurant here in Cleveland. And they were able to do that. And so if they did well in there, they hired them. And we've had several women being hired there. In fact, we have one who is the head of the pastry chef. She's the head pastry chef there, who in the beginning, she didn't even want to do baking. So we had several women there. We also partnered with the Virgil Brown, the county building, the welfare office, where we have the women working in the cafe. Tamika was one of them who worked in the cafe at the county building. So they were doing everything from the ordering to the register to inventory, the cooking. And it started off, so the stigma was, would they put things in our food or anything? And now the lines were out the door once they started tasting the food.
That's so great. That's awesome to hear. And actually, Amanda, I'll go to you to start then. Can you talk about how this program sort of helped change things for you and share your background about it?
Yeah, so Tamika kind of convinced me to join this. She was like, let's talk to everybody and see if we can get in. And I was like, they're never going to let us in. We have too much time, or what they call high risk. They're not going. She's like, no, we're going to. And lo and behold, they did. I think I did it initially just to get out of prison, right? Like, who doesn't want to leave prison?
Right.
But after that, it really became like I looked forward to it. Like, I had a routine. I'd get up and do this, go to school all day. It really improved my work ethic. Like, I looked forward to accomplishing different things. I'd never had that before. I never really had a job. So I think this just kind of sculpted me to be great out here now, like now I know what it is to work literally from the bottom up. I mean, we would scrub kitchens and just be disgusting. And now I don't have to do any of that, but that's where it started, right? Like, that's what gave me my start. So I credit everything to that program.
It's great. And Tamika, Tamika, what drew you to it? Was it the culinary part of it originally? Yeah, and you're muted. If you want to unmute.
I think we can hear you now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm not okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it definitely, because I've always been passionate about cooking, and I had knowledge of the industry prior to coming to prison. I had a small restaurant, so for me to be able to get out and take advantage of that and learn so much more, it was just like such a blessing. And then on top of that, it was like I hadn't done it in so long. I hadn't really cooked or been ordering stock and doing this since like 2011. So what I got from it was it let me know that I could still do it, because we changed numbers down there at the Virgil Brown. We changed the whole dynamic of that kitchen. They went from, the numbers were like tenfold, so, and for me, it just, though we didn't get paid for it, like I was getting paid every day, because it just let me know that I still had it and that I could still do it. And I'm talking about 14-hour days we were putting in. Leave the Virgil Brown, then go back and go to class, and then go back to the prison at 8:00. So, I mean, it was just great. It just got me ready for right now, where I'm at now.
And Lydia, you want to share your story about what drew you to the program?
I've always liked to cook and bake. My mom and I actually used to joke about, well, not joke. We used to talk about opening up a bakery. So I don't know. I mean, originally I applied because, who doesn't want to cook? Something fun to do. And again, like Amanda said, get out of prison, something to give you a sense of normalcy after being in there. You're nothing but a number to those people. They don't care about you, but trying to get out and get some sense of normalcy back in your life before you leave and go home to have everything thrown back at you. And like for me, the cooking and stuff was great and it was fun, but honestly, my favorite part of the program was more of the therapeutic classes. We had some of the best counselors. I loved Miss Cheryl. Like, she just was super blunt and didn't sugarcoat anything. And she would tell you how it was. And, if your thinking was crappy, she's going to tell you your thinking is crappy. And this is why, and this is how you need to fix it. Like, I loved her. And, and then just getting to bond with all the different women and hear their stories. You know, there's just so many other stories out there that are exactly, you know, like ours or super similar to ours. And it just, I don't know. I loved it.
So I love that you brought up the counseling and Cheryl in particular, because she was such a great part of the film too. Are there many resources once you're out to get to that kind of counseling still, or to have that sense of community? Have any of you been able to find anything like that since?
Well, for me, I really haven't reached out, you know,
No,
because I'm in
good.
Pennsylvania, and it's just so ironic because it's like I feel like I have more resources in Ohio as far as if I needed things to get them done than I do here, you know. So I do believe that the resources are there, but I'm not taking advantage of them. You know, Malika's very active with that too, with helping, you know, helping us stay connected. Anything that's available, she's always texting or emailing or, you know, trying to put us up on game and help us out.
Our free Thanksgiving boxes. Thank you, Malika.
That's great. Well, and actually that's a good segue, because I think over and over again in the film, there's a reference to the cycle of addiction. And I think you hear that a lot, specifically in your lives, Amanda and Tamika, having come from families who themselves struggled with addiction. But there was another kind of cycle that came up in the film that I just loved. And I think it was you first, Malika, that maybe referenced it, but there's a cycle of help and support. And of course, that's happening with the reentry program, but also with you, Lydia, like when you talked about hiring another formerly incarcerated person when you were at Tim Hortons. And I think
I got to hire several, actually, and it was, I don't know, I loved it every time they found me.
I think that's huge. And to me, like, just as a viewer, and especially with no experience in this, I would love to hear from each of you if you think that that's sort of part of the key, the answer to the cycle of addiction. Can it be this sort of cycle of help and support and being there for other women who have gone through this? And I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and talk about that. Yep.
I do. So I think as an addict, you never really feel supported, right? Because why would you? All you're really worried about is kind of just getting through the day, right? Like, how do I get my fix? How do I make myself not be sick and go on the next day and do it? So nobody really cares to help you. When they see that you're actually trying to do something positive with your life and give you a chance, I think that makes you want to give yourself a chance. And that's what everybody's always so scared when they get out, and me too, about not being able to do it, right? Well, not Tamika. But no, I'm not kidding. I joke, but like I never even worked more than a minimum wage job. Honestly, I never saw myself in that role because none of my family was. My mom was a waitress her whole life, you know. So I just always thought that I was destined for that. When I got out and I saw that there were people like wanting to build me up and wanting me to see my true potential, and like that is what made me strive to be good. And it sounds so cliche, but I did more than I didn't want to let myself down. I didn't want to let these people down that were like actually trying to help me for once in my life. And I think that just made such a positive impact in who I've become today.
We still have those resources available to those that went home. The licensed social workers are still there if they need to talk. In fact, a few of the alumni that went home have reached out and said, hey, I need help with my daughter. Can you set us up? And I connect them with our health and wellness department, who help them through all types of issues. Even through the pandemic, we were still able to give the alumni boxes of food because most of them work in the restaurant industry. And so when it shut down, they needed food for them and their family, and they were coming in and getting food. We found different resources, and I put it on Facebook or any social media telling them, hey, we have this available if you guys need this, or we have that available. So we're still trying to reach them and reach out to those that have went home. I'm big on because I was there and I have that lived experience to be able to reach back and help those coming behind me.
For me, people just, they label addicts so terribly, you know, like they never think you're going to change or amount to anything, and oh, you're just going to go back to that same old behavior and same web of lies and stealing and cheating and doing whatever you have to do, like Amanda said, to get your fix or not be sick and do whatever. And you know, for me, it was more about showing people that it can be done and proving people wrong, that addicts are not always an addict. You're not always, you know, a piece of shit, excuse me, but you can be a good person. You know, I don't have, you know, I didn't have a history of growing up and being that way. Mine was a little bit different, but even so, that doesn't mean that you can't go back to being a good person. And it doesn't mean that even if you grew up that way, that you can't change and be a good person. So for me, it was more about proving people wrong, and that an addict isn't always an addict, and they're not always, you know, going back to that behavior, and they do really want to change. And hiring a lot of those women, I heard over and over how afraid they were and how people doubted them and, you know, didn't trust them and didn't believe them. And, you know, I was constantly telling them, like, you know, just as long as you screwed people over, it's going to take just as long to get them to trust you again. It's going to take just as long to prove that you're doing the right thing. You have to, you know, show that you're changing. You have to walk what you're speaking. Your actions have to match your words. And if they don't, no, they're not going to trust you. But over time, you can build that trust back. And, you know, I had a lot of those women, like, you know, tell me repeatedly that they looked up to me because I was doing the right thing and my family was getting better. And, you know, I was the GM of the restaurant, and most of them are still doing really well. You know, there's a few of them that life happens and, you know, they're back out there, and hopefully one day they'll get things together. But, you know, it's just, I think we're labeled so poorly, and just, yeah, you know, some people, it's like they're labeled so poorly, and they're constantly told, you know, how crappy they are, or that they're never going to amount to anything, or that they're never going to change, that it's hard for them to change. Or they stop believing that they can. They start believing all those negative things that they're being told and that are thrown at them. So,
right. So Jennifer, I wanted to ask you too. You know, I think that the film covers a lot of the issues related to this topic, but I really love that you focus more on these women and their stories than necessarily going heavily into saying who is to blame for this system. I think you let their stories kind of tell it on their own. And I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts to share about that, if that was sort of deliberate from the beginning, if that's the kind of film you saw this becoming.
Yeah, I think so. The issues raised in the film are part of a much larger conversation that we're having about in the United States about inequality and racism and drugs and incarceration. And there's no way one film can possibly tell that whole story. So early on, after learning about this massive increase of women going into the system because of the war on drugs, because of drug sentencing policy, and witnessing what that separation is like, and for mothers and for their children, that's when I realized I wanted to focus on that piece. And I think what you were just talking about is an important part of the film too. I think we saw the strength when you have someone like Malika, for example, who has that lived experience and is a part of designing restorative programs that are restorative. So that was an important part for us to focus on. And the other thing I'd say is we do, in those moments with the title cards and when we set up the film, want to give some context, but I think for us, the power comes in those observed moments when you get to witness as an audience, when you get to witness what's happening. For example, when they're all reconnecting with their families, and you see those difficult moments as an audience member, you get to witness that rather than being told that. And I think when you witness those moments, they can often be more powerful and memorable than if you're just told about them. So that's why we decided to approach the film in that style.
So Jennifer, there's a lot of issues that the film touches upon and focuses on, but instead of you telling us those things directly, it seems like you took an approach to really let these women's stories tell it. And I wanted to know if you had originally wanted to go with that approach from the beginning when you started filming, or if that was something that happened organically.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's so I think the issues that we raise in the film are part of a much larger conversation that we're having in the United States about inequality and racism and drugs and incarceration. And there's no way one film could tell that whole story of mass incarceration. So we made a part as one piece of a much wider conversation with a focus on mothers, and we approached it that way in the way that we approached it in the film, where you really get to witness moments with everyone and as they're happening in the present. And we thought that would be more powerful for audience members than to be, for example, being told something in an interview or being told something by, you really just, as an audience member, you get to witness that and you get to experience that. And so we hope as a result of that the film will move audiences to learn more about women's incarceration and inspire conversations about what we can do as a society in the short and long term to create a more equitable and just society. And then just going back to the conversation that we were having earlier, we were also really drawn to this, to the idea that Malika, for example, was a part of designing, someone with that lived experience and those relationships was a part of designing the program. I think that's a really important part of this piece of designing solutions in the short term and in the long term, to creating a more equitable and just society and a system that's restorative rather than punitive for people who are involved in the justice system.
I think that's such a good point too, to make, that it really needs to include people who have those lived experiences in order to be successful. So thank you for sharing that. All right, well, I've saved bringing up your kids until now because I didn't want it to be a mess throughout the whole conversation. But there's no way that I'm letting any of you go without addressing what incredible mothers you all are. Watching how each of you parented from within prison, and then the patience and the grace that you have with each of your kids as they grew into trusting you again after you were released. It just puts a lot into perspective as a mom. And I just want to thank each of you again for sharing your stories with us, and because you're all just such an inspiration. So thank you to all of you. I do have a question in there somewhere. Can each of you share a little bit more about what that process was like, regaining the trust since the film, and also like how each of you felt about having a camera on you during such a vulnerable time, and how your families felt about that. And Lydia, I'd love to start with you, but you talked about it a little bit already, and how much progress you've made with Ashton, but if you can elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Oh man. It was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, there were so many times, as a mother, where you just want to like grab them and shake them and be like, I'm your mom. It's okay. Trust me, something. But you can't, you just, sorry. You have to be patient and let them feel what they're going to feel, because you screwed their life up. And you just have to let them go through those emotions because they are entitled to them. And it was probably one of the hardest things, other than being away from them as a mother, to sit back and let them hate you. You have to, like, you literally just have to let them hate you and apologize left and right. But more so than apologizing, like, you literally just have to show them day after day after day that you're doing the right thing and that you're not going anywhere and that you're not going to leave them again, and that what you're saying and what you're doing is all the same, and it's lining up and it's matching up. Sorry.
It's okay. I mean,
The first year I was home, Ashton barely talked to me. The most words he said was probably in that film. So, but today, because I gave him his space and, you know, I showed him day in and day out that I was doing what I said I was going to do and what I was doing before I got addicted to drugs. You know, today we're best friends again. He just turned 18. He comes to me for everything. And we're just as close now as we were when he was little. So it does get better. It just takes time. You just have to give him that time.
And Lydia, I just want to say too, I'm sure you've thought about this already, but I'm hoping that in your case, especially, even though I know if you could go back, you would not want to have to make your kids go through this again. But at the same time, I'm hoping for your case too, a silver lining could be that Ashton, if he ever faces stuff like that in the future too, he knows that he can talk to you and come to you to talk, and having gone through that, maybe did make your relationship even closer than it was before. I mean, I hope that for kids all over the place, but especially in your case that he knows he can trust you now for sure. So
definitely. And he is, you know, going through high school, he's come to me on, you know, multiple occasions dealing with kids at school that are doing things or people he's around, you know, if he was out and they were doing things, and he's been, you know, very open and very honest about all of it. And so that is a silver lining. You know, my kids do know they can come to me. They do know that I know what I'm talking about. They can trust what I'm saying. And if anything, I showed them a perfect example of what not to do and how bad it can mess up your life. So on the upside, they do know that. And I'm hoping he'll never go through what I went through. I'm hoping that, you know, I was enough of a lesson to not make those choices.
Right. And Malika, I think you had said that your son was 17 when you got out. He was 3 when you went in and 17 when you got out. So that is, you know, such a different trial to come out to. So can you talk about what that was like for you? Because we didn't get to really see that in the film.
So it was difficult because I had to not look at him as that 3-year-old when I first came home, and he was to my knee, and come home and he's like 6 foot tall. And so trying to make he's a young man now, and trying to build the relationship from there instead of thinking of back in the day when he was only 3 was a little difficult. And I also tell the women now that I wish when I came home that I not only had some therapy to go to when I first was released, but also to have therapy with him. So we could talk out some of his anger issues, because he was angry, but he was holding it in. And so when I went to see, actually, we just really got a great relationship last year when I went to see him in Virginia Beach. And I stayed a week, and we got to talk and discuss some of the issues that he had, and how he felt, because he was away from me, his mom and his dad. So his dad, yeah. And so we got to talking, and we got to build our relationship a little better, because I had to see that he was not that child anymore. And then I can disconnect from him. And my husband has called me on it, and I realized that. And so I'm in therapy now, actually. I talk to a licensed social worker now to work through a lot of issues that I didn't realize that I was holding in, even in prison, before prison, and after prison.
So Amanda, do you want to talk about building back your relationship up with Tyler?
My relationship with Tyler, I think it's kind of like Lydia's. I think it took there was a lot of attitude, a lot of just kind of, he didn't really treat me like his mom, which I didn't appreciate. So there was a lot of just hostility between me and him because I thought it was going to be a certain way. And I think he thought it was going to be a certain way, and it wasn't that way. So, but since then, it took about 7 months to work through that. But now we're just like, I wouldn't say best friends. He wouldn't say best friends, let's say. But now we're like, we can be honest with each other and open and just like tell each other when we're feeling frustrated or, when we're feeling happy. And I think that's helped us the most.
And Tamika, I'd love for you to talk about your daughter, Bailey. She's so incredible, and she just has such a great spirit. And I think you are a total testament to that, even being able to mother her from prison. And I think your mom obviously probably too. So can you talk about your relationship with your daughter?
Yeah, so when I came home, I think all of our situations are very similar. It was hard, it was crazy because when I was away, she wanted me home so bad. And then it was like, once I got home, it was still like, she was happy, but I at one point was feeling like, like she was maybe loving my parents more, Really, you want to go do this? She's like, nah, I just want to go to Walmart with Granny and Papa. I'm like, Walmart? Like, so that's what we had went through. And then, like I would talk about it to different people, and it was just like, just give it time. And that's what I did, like it hurt my feelings a lot, because it just hurt, and it wasn't anything that she was doing. It's not like she was being mean or any of that. It's just like we just weren't, you could tell that time had been taken away from us, So now I can't shake her. It's crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, why do you have to go to work? Why do you have to do this? I'm like, well, because we have to move and we have to, so okay, we'll tell him. Who said that? Freed?
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Freed's internet just went down. I text back and said I'll tell him.
I'm sorry.
But I was going to finish. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's okay because my iPad died, so I jumped on my phone. But now all the texts keep coming through the phone. So I'm sorry if it's going in like that, but today our relationship is it's great. She's like
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
She's getting to the teenage stage, so
right.
She's like voicing her opinions about things, and I'm embracing it. It's just different, It's
right.
It's good though. It's gotten 100% better than what it was, and then there's still room for more improvements.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about kids is how resilient they are, and I think it's it's never too late with them. So I think I'm really glad to hear that for each of you. And it sounds like, so Amanda totally lost internet, I'm guessing. Well, that makes sense though too. If the hotel's doing renovations, then that's probably why it's
Wi-Fi network went down.
Oh no.
And another thing I wanted to add really fast was, initially when I came home, I came to stay with my parents because I didn't want to just come and take Bailey away. And now she's like looking forward to moving, like she's on board with it and she's excited. And I'm excited because I thought that it was going to be a lot harder, but she see, that it'll just be better. We'll have more space and everything will just be better. She's excited about it. So that's a check mark. One mission accomplished.
That's so great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on though, just for time. If Amanda's able to come back on though, I'll make sure that I'll ask her the last question too. But I'd like to close out with hearing from each one of you about your thoughts on what really needs to change within the system and within society in order to make this a better world for our children, especially. And if you want to share any advice for other women who are going through what you went through too. So actually, Jennifer, I'm going to start with you if you want to talk about what you think really needs to change.
Yeah, I think things need to change both in the short term and the long term. So in the short term, I think there's more we can be doing to help people transition home, and especially women, things that we can be doing to address the unique needs of women who are transitioning home from prison, and a lot that we can be doing to help people restore those bonds with their children if they need to restore them, or strengthen them if they need to strengthen them. And then in the long term, I think we need to completely reimagine the justice system and think of ways, think of programs and like this programs and centers that can be places of restorative justice, places of places that are restorative rather than relying on punitive institutions for people who are involved in the justice system.
Right. Well, and Malika, you are living that change, I think. So if you want to talk about not only what you're, how what you're doing is that change, but if there's anything else that you think systematically you would want to see changed.
I think more people with lived experience need to be at the table. And as far as policy making, as far as lawmaking, I think their voices need to be heard, because how are you making these policies for somebody if you've never been there, you've never experienced it? And that goes for a drug abuse, women who are dealing with men that are abusive, and all of that. And as for me, I'm advocating for as far as higher education, discrimination in housing, discrimination in employers. So I'm out speaking and talking and trying to change some of these outcomes, especially in the Cleveland area. So I just think that more people with lived experience needs a seat at the table, all the way up to parole boards.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tamika, I'm going to go to you. If you had to give advice to maybe a mom that was facing a long prison sentence, or somebody who was already in prison and not feeling like they had anywhere to turn to, what would you say to them?
I know for what worked for me was just staying productive, just staying productive, staying busy, working on myself. It was obvious that I was stuck there and it was an uncomfortable situation, but what can I do to make this situation more comfortable? So, this is the time to invest into yourself and, get to know you again. I learned a lot of things about myself, simple things that I had good hair. I never knew, because I wore a weave all the time. So I'm like, small things. I learned a lot about myself. So, for us, a lot of us who were fortunate to be a part of the Chopping for Change program and be at Northeast, like, we were very fortunate, because time is hard. Time is a lot harder. And, people are struggling. So when you do get opportunities like that, take advantage of it. Just keep investing into yourself. That's the advice that I would give to anybody. And even once you get out, it's not going to be easy. When I got out, my parole officer was so mean to me. I had a job opportunity lined up making like $60,000, and he would not let me go for the training. It was awful. Like, it was so bad. Malika, you remember this. Like, I called her crying about it, like, because it was terrible, but today he is so great to me. You know what I mean? It is just like we have such a beautiful relationship, but it was because I had to show him, because he told me, listen, everybody reoffends. Everybody goes back to prison. So he already had that mindset, but it took time and just progress and just, persevering and keep pushing through. I didn't let that, because I was to the point where I was ready to call it supervisor, and it was all bad. But today, beautiful relationship. He's writing the letter, the progress report, so that I can actually get off of parole next month. and it's good. Yeah. So I'm excited.
That's great.
Advice, just keep pushing. Just, do the best you can, still parent from prison, make those connections and work on yourself, because if you're not good and you're still damaged, you can't do no good for nobody else, whether you're free or locked up. So that would be.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Lydia, I'm going to end with you. If you have advice, particularly for someone that finds themselves in your position, which unfortunately is a lot of people, somebody who maybe didn't grow up in that environment, but found themselves victim to pain medication, found yourself in prison. And then if you have advice for coming out of that and re-entering and trying to get back to the life that you were living before.
Man, patience. You have to have patience. You got to understand that everybody is entitled to their feelings, and that you probably hurt a ton of people along the way, and they're entitled to feel the way that they feel because you caused that, and you have to own that. You have to own that pain that you caused. First and foremost, you're not going to move on from anything until you own your actions and the pain that you caused, and try to make amends for that. But most importantly, patience, and to keep trying. They don't make things easy for us at all. We jump through hoop after hoop after hoop. Finding jobs is super hard. I mean, I got really lucky and found a job right away. But most people don't get that lucky. Most people are looking for months and months. And as soon as they find out they went to prison or have any type of a record, they can't get a job, because these employers, they don't believe people can change. They look at something on a piece of paper and not at the person in front of them. So just, you got to have patience and reach out to anybody and everybody that you can for help, because somebody out there will help you. You might get 100 no's, but all you need is that one yes. So you really just have to keep pushing and have patience.
And stay
Yep.
Great.
Stay encouraged.
Yeah. And it's that sort of pay it forward mentality too, I think that you held on to. So I think that can only help. All right. Well, I know that we've been keeping you all here for a while, and unfortunately we lost Malika and Amanda. Please send them our love and our thanks. I just want to thank each of you for spending time with us today. I want to thank you for sharing this film with us and your stories with us. And I'm very excited for our Cleveland audience to watch this film and hopefully learn as much as I did. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Jen, for making it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation. Thank you, Mallory.
Yeah. I also want to thank our audience for joining us for today's Q&A session. We wouldn't be here without your ongoing support to bring film home. Please consider donating to our challenge match to support the future of our festival. Our goal is to reach $145,000 this year, and we're grateful for any amount that you're able to contribute. To donate, purchase tickets, or check out our full schedule of filmmaker conversations like this one, please visit clevelandfilm.org. With that, please stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.